Welcome back to Sound 101. I'm Andrew from Deity Microphones, and on this episode, we're going to teach you guys how to record a podcast with a virtual guest. Now, in this era where everyone is launching a podcast, you may say to yourself, that's easy, Andrew. I can just go to Zoom and they're going to connect me with my person. What's so hard? Zoom is terrible. We did a whole episode on how to get better audio for Zoom. And at the end of the day, it's still not podcast worthy. And that's kind of why we're kind of making this its own separate concept video here. And yeah, Zoom is great if I want a conference and I need to see someone. But at the end of the day, if I want to listen enjoyably in my car on a really nice sound system, you need to deliver really nice sound to your listeners. So what we're going to be using is this thing called CleanFeed.net. It's a super easy piece of software because it runs in the Chrome browser or the Edge browser or any really Chromium-based browser. So even if you're on Linux, if you're on a Mac, you're on PC, if it can run Chrome, you're good to go. So I'm about to log in, but you have to create an account if you've never used it before. The accounts are free. Do not pay for it just yet. So here we are now in our editor. Very, very simple. So this is kind of like a mixer, recorder. You get concepts of where you also want to route your audio signals. So it's going to be kind of our editor for the day for our podcast, but you can still download and actually edit the stuff later. So here's what our simple basic interface is. And it's me, the host. I'm at the top. If I want to add guest, I can connect to guest. You can connect multiple guests if you want. It just works like Zoom. You know how you create a Zoom meeting, you create that big giant list and it has the URL and the passwords and all that kind of stuff. And all I have to do is type in their name. I can just sit there and do their email address and I can send them an invite just like you would a Zoom call. So the audio interface for your guest is going to be very simple and plain, and they're not going to worry about anything because they just open that link up in their Chrome browser and they're already connected with you. So let's actually show you the kind of options you do get. So there's an advanced tab if you want to use this, and that is you can actually create a link and actually send it out to people, the multiple people, like a newsletter if you want multiple guests on at one time instead of sending out lots of little emails. So I have a gear over here. I have my account, record, and I have audio. The gear lets you do pretty basic features like use my browser settings, which is going to be your default settings in your Mac. I can use the internal microphone. As you can see, I have a couple of virtual microphones that I've created using other software. Not today. We don't need that stuff. Most people, if you're doing this at home, you're going to see your internal microphone on your laptop. But here's the best part. Even though it's a Chrome browser, I can actually use a USB audio interface. So there's my Deity HDTX. And as you can see, I'm still recording over here. So I have my own personal copy, but I can now also record over here and have it all synced up with my guest. If I want to do left, right only, not a big deal. If I want to do a mono mix where it's automatically going to put my guest and my audio on the same audio track and mix them together, you have to pay for that. I want both, which means I'm going to be on one side and someone else is going to be on the other side. We also have the audio tab up top. What this tab is, it's not for the individual microphones, like the individual guest. This tab is for the individual recorded file itself at the end of the podcast. We're going to choose speech optimization for this. There's also low quality talkback, which you're never going to use because you're doing a podcast. You want high quality. If you were one of those podcasts that likes to kind of stream music and talk over it and have all this other stuff come in and artist play, that's what you would use this one for. But we're kind of just going to do a basic podcast, mostly talking. Playback device. Here's one thing we're going to do. So it's default internal speakers. We're going to change this because I'm going to then pair my earbuds. You have to trick it. So this is a pro feature that you don't have to pay for if you trick it by using your system preferences, right? Saving money every single day. So if I were to pop these in, right, I could now be listening and monitor my podcast, monitor my guest without it bleeding out my speakers into my microphone. Second tip we're going to talk about is earbuds. Definitely use them. So we got a professional microphone, tip number 1. We've got earbuds, tip number 2. And by using the software, we're going to actually get the premium sound quality recorded of our original audio source, as well as their original audio source, and then it's going to be mixed together. And then sound source, of course, is right here. Also, if you want to have multiple input devices via USB, you can do that too on your local machine, or you could have them set up on other machines and then remote in as a guest. But because we're not paying for this, we're only allowed one USB device, which is fine by myself. I'm doing this remote with someone else who is virtually going to call into the show. So I'm actually going to call and I'm going to connect with Steve. So now we've actually added our guest and Steve has clicked on our link. So Deity Steve is now in the house, and I know Steve is using an external microphone, which means immediately I know Steve cares about audio just as much as I do. So we are going to hear Steve very, very well here in a second. So our speech is optimized. We are ready to go. I see view meters. I've done a test with Steve. Let's hit record. So what we're going to do is we're going to name the recordings. And again, we're going to add time of day to the name of the file, which is awesome if you do lots of these. Let's go over real fast how you can actually do these recordings. We have my audio only, so I can record. If you want to use this just as a really nice high quality recorder for yourself, you have your audio. You can also record just your guest, because remember, I've got the HDTX, it's already recording. I can record my guest, and that way, boom, it's done, simple. I can do everyone and all your guests are all together on a single track. This is kind of like a mono concept. If you're not going to do a lot of mixing and post, this is probably your best option. If you want to go back and add music, if you want to go back and add, a cut and edit some stuff out or add some stuff later, you want to be able to have everything isolated as much as possible. We're going to do a basic split stereo for this setup. And as you can see, a split stereo, it records everyone. It puts me, the host, on the left, and it actually puts all my guests on the right channel. So if I had multiple guests, they'd be all mixed together. And that way, if I'm muting and unmuting, I can still kind of do like a rough mix, and I can clean it all up in post. But if you did spend the money for that pro account, you could do a multi-track file. And that'd actually be kind of really interesting to do. Some kind of really cool film shoot where everyone's shooting on their webcam, and you want to do kind of one of those Zoom style TV shows. You could also do this in the background for the audio, and then sync the two files together and post later. So you can get the Zoom video with this audio. It's going to sound much better. So let's actually do a split. And now I'm going to hit record. So now actually as you can see, have got a screen that says our file master name is right there. And I am up on the left. So as I talk, my meter goes up at the same time. And now Steve, what is going on over there in Deity Steve land?
Well, hey, Andrew, I thought you forgot about me over here. Yeah, no, I'm working on this new competition thing. By the time this airs, it'll be live, so you guys should all check it out. It'll be fun. You can win some free stuff from us.
But as you can hear, Steve does not sound like he is on a Zoom call. He sounds so much more like he's right in the room with us. I mean, that's a lavalier you're wearing, right, Steve?
It is. I'm wearing a VLAV right now.
That's impressive for the fact that it's streaming over the internet. And that's kind of the whole point of this CleanFeed software, is the fact that we can have our virtual guest and it doesn't need to sound like some kind of robotic TV show. Because remember, and this is the other important thing, when you're doing some of those Zoom calls, if you've got everyone's camera going at the same time, it's having to process all that in one piece of software all together. This way, we're actually spreading the load across multiple cores of our computer. So once your podcast is actually done, all I got to do now is hit this little download button once my thing is done, because I hit the stop recording, hit the download, and it's going to go right in. I want to drop this in my music folder. It is a WAV file. It's not an MP3. And as you can see, I can get a last minute chance to rename my file if I didn't like the name I gave it in CleanFeed, and I hit save, and boom, and it is done. So Steve, anything you want to say to me right now after you hear what the results are of this program?
I think this is lovely technology, and it is exactly what we need, kind of in this continued age of virtual communications. Something like this is going to make everybody's life easier, and specifically hearing people, it's just great. Yeah,
I think one of the hardest things, is we got to be separate. We need to do the distancing and everything. And I think hopefully people who are watching at home and do have podcasts that watch this, maybe switch over, and maybe there's going to be some really cool podcasts. That is going to wrap it up for us, though. Please subscribe. We do content like this every single week. If you hit that bell for notifications, you'll be first on the list to know exactly when we post brand new videos. Steve and I are dedicated podcast listeners. We both have our favorites, and we always want to look out for more. So if you have a favorite podcast, drop it down in the comment section below and give some podcaster out there some love, and hopefully they can get a new, bigger fan base here by seeing that comment down that lower section. Steve, anything you want to say?
I don't think so, Andrew. I think you covered it all there.
It also sounds like you're trying to get into your car and get out of there, so I don't blame you. I'm Andrew from Deity Microphones. He is virtual Deity Steve. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Hey, if you did like this kind of video though, and you do want to stick with Zoom because you're doing other things like just having conferences and you're really trying to do mission critical work, we have a video over here on my left-hand side, your right-hand side of the screen, and that's going to actually show you guys how to get better audio in Zoom for your conferences, not your podcast, right? Remember, we do podcasting here in the good software. We do conferences over there in that software where business is held over on Zoom.